Yo, what's up guys, hope you guys are doing good. So today we are going to see what if Naruto fell in love with Tenten part 1. Hope you will enjoy this video, so before we start please like the video and subscribe to our channel and hit bell notification, it motivates me to upload more fanfics for my lovely audience. So let's get started. Damn him. He is late again. A brown-haired young girl was leaning against one of the poles in the training grounds. Her hair was down and she was dressed in a pink shirt and marine blue pants. Her chocolate-colored eyes darted back and forth in search of someone. She was twirling a kunai between her fingers in one hand, while doing the same with a shuriken in the other. Then, she caught sight of an approaching person. She frowned slightly and smiled playfully. A blond boy came running along the road, looking very stressed. The girl smiled and put away her weapons as the boy reached her. "You're late, Naruto." Again. The girl stated. Naruto took a second or two to regain his breath. "I'm sorry, Tenten. Well, you see, a black cat crossed my path, so I had to find another one." And that. Tenten shook her head. "I think you need to take some time off from missions, Naruto. You've clearly spent too much time together with Kakashi-kun. First of all, you're late. And two, you have a very lame excuse for it," Tenten said. Naruto grinned and scratched the back of his head. Tenten found this very cute and kind of attractive in some way. "I guess so," Naruto admitted. Tenten smiled. She then walked up to the blonde boy and slid her arms around him. Naruto put his arms around her waist and pulled her close. They shared a loving kiss. When they parted, they both had slightly red cheeks. Naruto smiled and kissed her forehead. He almost couldn't believe that he had almost chosen Sakura over Tenten. That just proved what a fool he had been back then. "I've missed you, Tenten. I really have," Naruto stated. Tenten snuggled up to him and nodded. "I've missed you too, Naruto-kun," Tenten said. Tenten smiled as she drew lazy circles on Naruto's back. "I still can't believe that. I almost chose Neji instead of Naruto-kun. It wasn't until after the Chunin exam that I started to rethink my feelings for him. But what really changed my opinion about him?" Tenten closed her eyes and a memory surfaced. Flashback. Tenten collapsed onto her knees, panting hard. She raised her hand above her head. This gesture was the agreed sign for giving up between them. But somehow, Neji misunderstood this. He charged forward, reading his right hand with his palm forward. Tenten was expecting to see Neji calmly walking towards her, but instead, she saw him running towards her. He was fully prepared to strike another blow. He didn't see the "give up" sign. "This is bad," Tenten thought quickly. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't support her weight. She collapsed back onto the ground. Tenten realized that with the current angle of Neji's hand, she was going to get hit in the center of her chest. Tenten's eyes widened in horror. "If Neji hits me in the center of my chest, then I'll end up just like Hinata," Tenten thought in panic. She tried to yell, "Stop," but her lips wouldn't move. Neji came within 5 meters from her with no sign of stopping. Tenten closed her eyes and raised her arms to take the hit. "This is going to hurt," Tenten thought. Her heart beat loudly in her ears and shut out all the other sounds around her. She shut her eyes tight and expected to feel pain. But there wasn't any. Tenten waited 1 second, 2, 3. Then she opened her eyes slowly. They widened. At the sight before her, Neji was standing about 2 meters from her. His palm was pressing against orange fabric. He had a look of surprise on his face. And for a good reason. Standing 1 meter from Tenten was a blond boy. He was pressing his arm against Neji's palm. Tenten just stared. Her mouth fell open in surprise and shock. Naruto-kun. W. Where did he come from? W. Why is he here? Tenten wondered. Then her brain finally registered the position of the boy's arm. Naruto-kun. He blocked Neji's attack. Tenten thought. Naruto growled at Neji. "Don't you dare hurt her. Do you hear me? Don't you dare hurt her. Naruto growled. Tenten's eyes widened. Did Naruto just defend her? Neji went from surprised to annoyed. We are training, dropout boy. Don't interfere, Neji said. Naruto grit his teeth. Are you blind? Tenten couldn't move. And yet, you went after her with all you had. When your sparring partner can't move anymore, you're supposed to stop. But I guess you're so arrogant, not to say stupid, that you dismissed that little fact. You did the same thing to Hinata, your own relative. All you really seem to care about is yourself. And your own sense of life. You're disrespectful, rude, arrogant, ignorant, and cold-hearted. You call yourself Hyuga Neji with that. You may be part of Konoha's most respected family. But to me, you're just a brainless jerk. Naruto said. Neji's eyes narrowed and he bit back whatever response he had had. For a long time, he just stared Naruto in the eye. Then, with one swift move, he removed his hand from Naruto's arm and strode away. Tenten was shell-shocked by what she had seen. Her mouth hung open and her eyes were wide open. Naruto was shaking with anger, but he calmed himself. He then turned to Tenten. Hey, are you alright? Tenten finally snapped out of her trance and saw Naruto standing before her with his hand extended. She looked at the offered hand as if she didn't understand what he meant. She looked at his face, and was met with a smile. Something deep inside of Tenten reacted when Naruto smiled at her. She felt her cheeks become red and her breathing quickened slightly. Tenten was confused immensely by this. What's going on? Why am I blushing? This is Naruto, for God's sake. Tenten thought. She swallowed and took his hand. Naruto helped her to her feet but didn't let go of her hand immediately, and neither did she. They looked into each other's eyes. Sea blue meeting chocolate brown. Naruto's smile slowly faded. Something about Tenten made him feel funny. Tenten studied the blonde boy before her, and found that she kind of liked what she saw. He's not as bad looking as I thought. He's actually quite handsome if you can look past his childish outer self. Wow, what am I thinking? Tenten blinked. She swallowed. Thanks Naruto-kun. I guess Neji misread my movements. Tenten managed to get out. The more she looked at Naruto, the more she liked what she saw. It was nothing. I just tried to help. That's all. Naruto said with a slight hint of nervousness in his voice. Tenten looked Naruto up and down. Her cheeks heated up and her heartbeat quickened. Then, their eyes locked. They lost all sense of time and place as they gazed into each other's eyes. Tenten drowned in Naruto's blue orbs. She couldn't tear her eyes from his. Then before she knew it, he had crossed the distance between them and had her in his arms. He lowered his face and pressed his lips against Tenten's. Her cheeks flushed crimson and her breathing sped up. Never before in her life had Tenten felt so alive than when Naruto kissed her. It was like she had been dreaming up until now. Tenten lost her self-control and a burning passion took over. She placed her hands on the back of Naruto's head and kissed him back, with passion. She ran her hands through his wild spiky hair. Naruto soon responded and their light kissing turned more passionate. End flashback. Tenten opened her eyes and smiled. She sighed contently as Naruto kissed her neck before drawing back to look at her face. He smiled warmly at her and his smile was mirrored by Tenten's. Me and Naruto-kun have been together for 2 years now. When he kissed me then, I finally realized that I had been blinded by my crush on Neji. I probably loved Naruto-kun from the very first time I saw him, I just never realized it. But now I see. I see everything clearly. I love Naruto-kun with all my heart. And I am pretty sure that he loves me back just as much. Tenten thought. Naruto stroked her cheek fondly and let his other hand trace circles on her back. Tenten, I'm sorry that I haven't been paying you enough attention lately. Naruto said. His eyes showed how bad he felt more than his words. Tenten shook her head and put her slender hand on his cheek. Don't be sorry. You couldn't help it. You and your team have been away on missions for almost a week straight. And missions can't be ignored. Even though I wish they could be, Tenten said. Naruto nodded. He felt just the same way. I still feel like an ass though. Tell you what, I'll take you out to eat tonight. Naruto said. Tenten gasped lightly at this. Naruto-kun, you don't need to. Really. Tenten said. He had taken her out to eat many times before and she had always enjoyed herself immensely. But she didn't want him to feel guilty about his absence and take her out just because of it. Naruto silenced her by putting a finger to her lips. I want to make up for my absence. I will take you out to eat tonight and not just to make up for lost time, but because I want to. Naruto stated. Tenten didn't protest anymore. She put her forehead against his and smiled warmly at him. Alright, you win. But I get to choose where we'll eat, alright? Tenten said. Naruto nodded. Of course. He said. They laughed. Then Naruto captured her lips with his own, making her heart flutter. They both felt alive. When they broke apart for air, Naruto pulled out a kunai. Let's train a little first, shall we? Naruto said. Tenten smiled wryly. Alright. But only for a little bit. Tenten said. Naruto agreed, and they headed out on the training ground. Later that night, at Tenten's house. Right. That should do it, Tenten said to herself. She was standing before a mirror, looking over herself. She was dressed in a black silk dress with red lines following the outlining. Her hair was down and free of any ponytail. It looked like Sakura's when she had long hair, only that it wasn't spiky. Tenten, being pleased with her looks, went to get her jacket. She stepped outside of her apartment and locked the door. The young woman left the building and looked around for her date. She smiled wryly. I bet he's late as per usual, Tenten thought. Then, someone patted her shoulder. She turned and came face to face with none other than Naruto. The blonde boy was grinning and rubbing the back of his head. He was dressed in a white shirt, black pants, and of course, his orange jacket. Naruto had removed his forehead protector for once. Sorry, Tenten. Am I late? I tried to get here as fast as I could, Naruto said. Tenten shook her head. No, I just left the apartment. You're just in time, Tenten said. Naruto let out a relieved sigh and then he grinned. Great. Shall we go? Naruto asked. He offered her his arm. Tenten smiled and took it. Yes, she said. As they made their way to the restaurant they were going to eat at, Naruto found it very hard to control himself. He snuck peeks at Tenten every 5 seconds. My god. She is beautiful. She really have grown to become a stunning young woman, Naruto thought. His eyes darted across his date's body. Naruto's all too helpful mind provided him with images of some impure things. He tore his eyes away from Tenten and tried to suppress his feelings. He had had some problems with his self-control over the past few months. Naruto knew that it was his teenager hormones that was messing up his mind. Stop thinking like that, man. She's your girlfriend for goodness sake. You don't want her in that way. His mind kept telling him. A low rumbling in the back of his head alerted him of the presence of a certain demon. You don't want her in that way, do you? Well, I'd say that certain body parts of yours are disagreeing with you. Naruto groaned in his head. He really didn't need this right now. The fox demon always stated the obvious. Can't you shut up for one night, Kyuubi? You've been terrorizing me ever since I started going out with Tenten. Naruto yelled in his head. I'm afraid I can't do that, kid. This is just about the only entertainment I get nowadays. You have no idea how it is like to just sit in a cell all day without anything to do at all. Since you haven't killed anyone. Since I don't know when, I take out my frustration this way instead. Kyuubi stated. Naruto growled. It's been 2 years, Kyuubi. So don't give me that crap. Now police. Shut up. Naruto growled in his head. Kyuubi practically howled with laughter at his so-called threat. But nevertheless, he went quiet. Naruto let out a big sigh. He really hated it when the damned fox demon decided to pester him with his never-ending supply of lies and absurd suggestions. But no matter how hard he tried to deny it, he still wanted her. Naruto wanted Tenten badly. He shook his head and concentrated on repeating all the techniques he knew in his head, over and over again. Unknown to him, Tenten was having similar thoughts about him. She looked at his well-trained body and blushed. When did Naruto become such a handsome man? He's grown over the past 2 years, yeah, he definitely has. Tenten thought. She fought to suppress the growing feeling of warmth in her chest. Come on. What are you thinking? He's your boyfriend for Christ's sake. You don't want him in that way. Her mind kept telling her. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't deny that she wanted him. Tenten wanted Naruto very badly. She tried to clear her head by repeating all of the taijutsus she knew in her mind, over and over again. The two teenagers tried to suppress their feelings during their meal and succeeded, although barely. As the two left the restaurant, they were both feeling rather warm. Naruto's cheeks were flushed as was Tenten's. Just sitting right in front of her had been a royal pain. He hadn't been able to kiss her or simply touch her, which he yearned to do. Tenten struggled to keep herself from panting. She was so warm, and a bit aroused. God, I can't believe that just being with him can make me feel like this, Tenten thought. The two teenagers passed a dark alley, and a shadow suddenly shot out of it. A light whistling sound was heard. Naruto's ninja senses immediately detected the threat and he reacted instantly. Naruto grabbed Tenten by the waist and pushed her out of the way of the sharp projectile. Tenten was surprised to say the least when Naruto pushed her. She was even more surprised when a kunai dug itself into his shoulder. Naruto let out a pained grunt and he turned around to face their attacker. A slim man between the ages 28 to 31 stood a distance away. His green vest showed his ninja rank. The man was a Chunin. Naruto growled at the man. Hey. My. It seems that you're better than I thought, demon. Spawn. To be able to not only sense, but to also block my attack in pitch darkness. That was rather good. For thrash like you. Too bad I hit you first. Demon spawn. I was planning to hit you with my second attack. A poisoned kunai, that is. Hey, too bad I missed the girl. The Chunin thug stated. Naruto's eyes narrowed at this. There actually were people in Konoha that would attack him right in the street. He never would have thought that anyone in Konoha would dare to do something like that. Tenten stared in horror as thick drops of blood dripped from his shoulder. She got back up onto her feet and cursed herself for not bringing any weapons with her. Naruto's brain now registered the man's last statement. Too bad I missed the girl. He was aiming for Tenten. He was trying to kill Tenten. Naruto thought. A low rumble was heard in his head and this time, Naruto welcomed it. The fox demon grinned inside of the boy's head. Maybe he could convince the kid to kill the man. The demon was excited at the mere thought of blood. The man chuckled. I don't know how the demon boy convinced you to go out with him, girl. But it must have been a really good lie, don't you think? I mean, demons aren't capable of feelings. Except for hatred and bloodlust, of course. The Chunin said. Tenten frowned in anger. Where the fuck did you get air from? Naruto isn't a demon. Naruto is Naruto. Tenten growled. The Chunin again chuckled. Girl, since you're so hell-bent on staying with that monster, I have no choice but to kill you, along with the demon spawn. The man stated. He pulled out another kunai. A kunai with something purple dripping from it. Tenten's eyes widened. That purple liquid. It must be poison. Tenten's mind immediately analyzed. The man chuckled, then he disappeared. A loud smack followed by a pained scream echoed through the night. Naruto spun and saw something that made his heart skip a beat. The Chunin thug was standing right before Tenten with his arm fully extended. And Tenten was falling to the ground. A fresh bruise was already forming on her cheek where the man's hand had hit her. Apparently, he had decided to first humiliate her before killing her. Everything went into slow motion for Naruto at this point. He saw Tenten slowly falling to the ground with a bruised cheek. Naruto now lost it. He closed his eyes and time went back to normal. Tenten hit the ground with a thud. The man raised the arm with the kunai in it, and a pair of blood-red eyes opened. Die, girl, the man yelled with a mad look on his face. The Chunin thug brought the poisoned kunai down, and Tenten's brown eyes widened. A clawed hand grabbed the man's wrist and twisted it roughly, making him drop his weapon. The man screamed in agony and pulled his arm free of the blonde's grasp. He stared at the teenager with mixed feelings in his eyes. Tenten blinked, then she looked up. She saw Naruto standing with his back to her. He was hunched down slightly in a dog-like stature. A loud growl rose from Naruto's throat and it grew into a roar. A whirlwind of red chakra erupted from him and his roar grew louder. The kunai that was stuck in his shoulder was blown away by the sheer force of the boy's chakra. Smoke surrounded the wound and it began to close. Immediately, Tenten was shocked to say the least. Naruto-kun. Tenten stuttered. Naruto quieted down for a moment. I promised long ago that I would protect Tenten. And now that you have hurt her, I will beat you to a bloody pulp. Naruto roared. Then he blurred away. The Chunin thug's eyes widened in fear as the fox teenager charged him. The red-eyed boy formed his favorite hand seal and split into 5 different copies of himself. The 4 clones reached the man and disappeared. They reappeared around the Chunin and made a quadruple upward kick attack. The man was sent spiraling up into the air. There, the real Naruto was waiting. The foxy teenager grinned savagely at the man and raised his leg. The Chunin thug's eyes widened in fear, then it was too late. Naruto brought his foot down and completely smashed the man's face. The Chunin spiraled downwards and hit the ground, hard. The 4 Narutos dissolved into smoke as the real one landed on the ground. The red chakra disappeared and his appearance changed back to normal. Naruto fell down on one knee while panting heavily. Tenten stared at her boyfriend. She could hardly believe what she just had seen. Tenten had heard about and seen several of Naruto's fights before, but she never would have thought that he had always been this powerful. Tenten's brain finally snapped back into functioning, and she quickly got to her feet and made her way over to him. She kneeled down beside Naruto and put her arms around him. Naruto-kun, are you alright? Naruto-kun, Tenten asked, worried. Naruto surprised her by grinning. He looked at the unconscious thug before him and his grin widened. He then looked up at Tenten with shining blue eyes. I beat him up, just like I said I would, Naruto stated. Tenten's brow furrowed with concern. You idiot. Why did you go along and do that for? Tenten ranted. Naruto smiled warmly at her and she fell quiet. I'm sorry for worrying you, but if there is one thing I just can't take, then that's letting my girlfriend get hurt. I'm sorry, Tenten. I couldn't stop him in time, Naruto said. His smile disappeared at the end and he looked down into the ground. Tenten's hand went up to her sore cheek and she winced slightly. The man had hit her harder than she thought. But that was of no concern to her. Tenten's heart nearly melted at Naruto's statement. Sometimes it was hard to believe that the blonde before her had once been just a small boy prankster, and not the loving man he was today. Tenten hugged Naruto close and dug her face into his shoulder. Don't be silly, Naruto-kun. You have nothing to be sorry for. You beat that guy bloody, just like you said you would. You saved my life, Naruto-kun. That's something I can never thank you enough for. Although, You should have left him somewhat conscious for me, Tenten stated. Naruto looked at her for a moment, then he slowly grinned. He hugged Tenten. Back and his grin evolved into a smile. Thanks, Tenten. I can't believe how lucky I am to have someone like you. Naruto whispered. Tenten nodded. Same to you, Naruto-kun. Same, to you. They made it back to the apartment without any more trouble. When they made it to Tenten's door, they faced each other again. Naruto smiled slightly and gently caressed Tenten's still slightly red cheek. I still can't believe I let him hit you. Naruto mumbled. His blue eyes shone with guilt. Tenten silenced him by putting one of her fingers to his lips. She shook her head at Naruto with a loving smile. How many times do I have to say this? It wasn't your fault. Naruto-kun. I'm not mad at you. If anything, I'm thankful. You saved my life, and that is something that is pretty high in my standards for a good boyfriend, Tenten stated. Naruto smiled and took her in his arms. You're right. I should stop worrying and start loving you even more than before. I swore long ago that I would protect you, and I swear that I will never let anything like this happen again. Ever. Naruto stated. Tenten nodded at him. Fair enough. But next time, save some for me, alright? Tenten said. Playfully. That's going to be tough, considering that there isn't going to be a next time, Naruto stated, stubbornly. Tenten left it at that. Naruto then leaned into her and kissed her deeply. Tenten kissed him back just as deeply. Naruto felt something stir inside of him and deepened the kiss even more. He put his arms on her back and pulled her as close to him as he could. Naruto felt as if he had to really show Tenten just how much he loved her. After the Chunin thugs' attack on them earlier, he felt that he needed to make Tenten feel loved and safe. He was determined to do just that. Naruto licked Tenten's lips and she opened her mouth. Their tongues met, and their passion built up. Tenten's hands lost themselves in his unruly blonde hair. She pressed her mouth more fully against Naruto's in a vain attempt at heightening their shared passion. Naruto's hands toyed with the zipper on Tenten's back and his girlfriend fisted her small hands inside of his shirt. Somehow during all this, Tenten managed to unlock the door and pull the blonde in with her. As soon as they made it inside, Naruto kicked the door closed and spun around. He pushed Tenten up against the door and started tongue kissing her passionately. Tenten answered by kissing him back with a feverish want. Naruto felt his control slipping little by little, but he wasn't worried. Somehow, he had never done anything like this before, but he wasn't scared or even nervous. Tenten had never done anything even remotely close to what they were doing before, but she wasn't afraid or nervous at all. And as the night evolved, their passion reached new heights. They were both virgins, but that didn't seem to matter. Naruto was never afraid during the whole ordeal and neither was Tenten. It all felt so right. Tenten's chocolate-colored eyes fluttered open and she drew lazy circles on Naruto's stomach. Their bodies were covered in a nice, thin layer of sweat. Tenten lifted her head from her lover's chest and looked up. Naruto seemed to sense that she was looking at him and his own eyes opened. Sky blue met chocolate brown. Tenten smiled warmly at him. Her brown bangs lay slightly plastered to her forehead. She reached up and kissed him on his cheek before returning to his chest. Naruto smiled warmly at her and put his hand on her back. I love you, Tenten. Naruto whispered. Tenten closed her eyes with a smile. I love you too, Naruto-kun. Tenten whispered back. The two lovers then closed their eyes and fell into a dreamless slumber. Naruto frowned slightly in his sleep. He tiredly opened his eyes and looked up at the ceiling. A large black tattoo appeared on his stomach. Kyuubi. I don't know what you find so amusing about this, but shut the hell up, please. Naruto looked down at his lover and smiled. The booming echo of the fox demon's laughter died as he stroked the young woman's hair. Tenten slept peacefully. The black tattoo on his stomach faded away and the blonde ninja could relax again. After looking down at the person he loved the most in the whole wide world, he soon fell asleep again. The two lovers slept peacefully the rest of the night. The sun shone through the window of a particular house in Konoha. Two young people lay tangled together in the bedroom. The young brunette slowly moved, signaling that she was about to wake up. Tenten's brown eyes fluttered open, but they closed again almost immediately. The sun shone straight into her face. Tenten stretched and let out a yawn before sitting up. It was now that she noticed the other person beside her. Tenten immediately remembered what had happened the day before and she smiled. The brunette stealthily snuck out of the bed and made her way to her closet. She dug out some clothes for herself and went into the bathroom to change. When fully clothed, she made her way back into the bedroom. Tenten smiled when she saw that her boyfriend was still sleeping silently. Made her way to the small kitchen. She immediately started cooking breakfast. Being together with Naruto for 2 years had taught her some important things about the blonde. One thing being his favorite breakfast, lunch, dinner, and midnight snack. Ramen, that is. Tenten and Naruto had spent many days at her apartment, which had taught her that it was a good thing to have a large stock of ramen available. Tenten hummed peacefully as she prepared a large portion of miso ramen for herself and her lover. As she set out plates on the table, she thought back on the incident last night. Tenten frowned slightly. She remembered how Naruto had called upon a huge amount of chakra. Naruto-kun, what the hell happened to you last night? Where the heck did that red chakra come from? And why did it feel so scary? I mean, that chakra was big enough to make Tsunade-sama seem like nothing. Tenten wondered. She had been so caught up in her emotions and wants the night before, that she had completely forgotten about the fight. Tenten pondered the subject for about 10 minutes. The sound of footsteps pulled her back to reality. She turned to see a sleepy Naruto standing in the kitchen doorway. Tenten smiled as he walked up to her. Naruto yawned and shook his head to clear the sleepiness from it. Good morning, Naruto-kun. Tenten greeted. Naruto rubbed the last bit of sleepiness from his eyes and looked down at the table. His blue eyes grew wide as he took in the large meal set on the table. Naruto looked back at Tenten with fake tears in his eyes. Having you and a big portion of ramen in the same room. I'm in heaven. Naruto said and wiped the tears away with a dramatic hand gesture. All sleepiness seems to be gone from him now. Tenten noted amusedly. Well, why don't you sit down? The ramen is getting cold. Tenten said. Naruto quickly sat down and grabbed a pair of chopsticks. By the time that Tenten was seated, Naruto had devoured one bowl of ramen and was working on his second. Tenten couldn't help but giggle again. He's so cute. Especially when he is eating. He's handsome too. That, I really noticed. Last night, Tenten thought, her cheeks coloring slightly as she thought that. After finishing his 10th bowl of ramen, Naruto leaned back against the chair. He sighed contentedly and patted his stomach. Tenten finished her 3rd bowl and wiped her mouth with a napkin. She smiled at her boyfriend. Then the issue of what happened the night before came to her mind. Tenten looked down at the table and started running her finger in small circles. Naruto-kun, can I ask you something? Tenten asked nervously. Naruto looked at her. He wasn't the brightest when it came to understand other people's feelings, or his own, for that matter, but even he could see that the girl before him was nervous about something. Sure, Tenten, shoot, Naruto said. Tenten nodded to herself and struggled to keep the nervousness from her voice. How should I start this? Tenten wondered. She made up her mind about the fight last night. Tenten began. She had decided to be blunt and to the point with him, seeing as it was usually the approach that worked best on him. She saw how Naruto visibly tensed up at her question. She wondered if she had hit a nerve. Naruto directed his eyes away from her and clenched his teeth. Damn it. I knew that this was going to happen. I shouldn't have lost control during the fight. I could have used the shadow replication and kicked that guy's ass, without Kyuubi's chakra. I didn't need that Furball's chakra at all. It was just that I couldn't stand seeing Tenten getting hurt. Damn it. Now what do I do? Damn, damn. Let's see. If I tell her, then she will most surely leave me. But if I don't tell her, then there's a chance that she will either squeeze it out of someone else, or she'll just turn around and leave me anyway. I am so utterly screwed. Naruto thought. Tenten watched how the blonde boy started shaking in what appeared to be futility. He looked like a trapped animal. Naruto-kun, Tenten asked, hoping to get an answer. Naruto shook his head at her. I can't tell you. It would destroy what we have. Naruto said, finally. Tenten's eyes widened slightly at this. Was the secret to his power that dark? Tenten frowned slightly at this thought. She had never liked being left in the dark. Naruto knew this. And yet, here he was, trying to hide something from her. Even though it may be to protect her, somehow, Tenten did not like the thought of spending the rest of her life with Naruto while knowing that he was keeping something from her. Naruto was saved from having to answer, as a thunderous crash was heard. Naruto's eyes snapped open and he saw how 3 of the apartment's windows were smashed. 3 men came through them and stared at the residents with hatred in their eyes. Naruto frowned. He recognized one of them. It was the thug he had beaten up the day before. The other 2 must be his friends. Not that I can understand how anyone can possibly be friendly towards a creep like him. Enough about that. I've got to kick these guys out of Tenten's apartment. It's bad enough that it's my fault. They broke into it. Naruto thought. Hey, Fox Demon. You've really done it now. Humiliating our buddy by actually beating him. We'll kill you. One of the men yelled. Tenten slid into a fighting stance. She pulled out 2 kunai, grateful she had them around this time. The man's comment had made her wonder. Fox Demon. What did he mean by that? Tenten wondered. Then, a memory of the last fight arose in her head. Flashback. Tenten blinked. Then she looked up. She saw Naruto standing with his back to her. He was hunched down slightly in a dog-like stature. A loud growl rose from Naruto's throat and it grew into a roar. A whirlwind of red chakra erupted from him and his roar grew louder. The kunai that was stuck in his shoulder was blown away by the sheer force of the boy's chakra. Smoke surrounded the wound and it began to close immediately. End flashback. Naruto-kun's appearance. It did look a little fox-like. It seems like these guys know what Naruto-kun is hiding from me. Damn it. I wanna know too. Godumnit. Tenten thought. Get out. Or do you want me to help you out? Naruto asked coolly. The 3 men all growled and started molding chakra. Naruto frowned deeply. There really were people in Konoha who would kill just to be rid of an irritating villager. Just because he happened to have a big furball sealed into his stomach. Naruto started growling. He could feel the Kyuubi chakra bubbling beneath his chakra center. The blonde ninja suppressed it. He didn't want to scare Tenten right now. Not ever. Tenten shook her head to clear it and bent her knees. It was time for some sweet payback. Are you idiots really Konoha ninjas? I mean, you're murderous and stupid. That's not fitting of a Konoha ninja. Oh, and another thing. I still have to pay you back for slapping me. Tenten said fiercely and pointed straight at said thug. Veins appeared on the thug's forehead as she said this. He started barking out different insults, but the 2 young ninjas didn't listen. Naruto turned to Tenten with a small smile. I'm going to clear these guys out of here. If, by some chance, one of them gets past me, I want you to finish him. Naruto stated. Then he turned away from her and formed his favorite hand seal. Tenten grinned. Sorry Naruto-kun, but I can't do that. I have a score to settle. She stated. Naruto paused. Then he closed his eyes, still with the small smile present. Hey, should have known you'd say that, he muttered. Tenten directed her eyes forward and focused on the situation at hand. There will be time to wonder about this demon history after the fight. There's no way that I'm going to let Naruto-kun get all the good stuff. I still have a debt to repay to one of these guys. Tenten thought. Shadow replication technique. Naruto called out. The 12 Narutos charged the thugs, splitting into 3 teams of 4. Tenten focused chakra underneath her feet and stomped the ground, giving her a speed boost. She ran past 4 of the Narutos and leapt into the air. The real Naruto smiled at her. His usual cockiness was starting to return. He ran ahead of his clones, eager to finish what he had started the day before. Tenten vaulted and executed a fast axe kick directed at one of the thugs' head. But the Chunin caught her leg and spun her around a couple of times before releasing her. A second later, she heard several poofs, which indicated that some of Naruto's clones had been destroyed. Tenten was slightly surprised at this, but she managed to land on her feet. Or so she would have, if it wasn't for the Chunin thug that happened to stand behind her. He grabbed her legs and started spinning her around. Tenten was surprised to find herself spinning again. I attacked him at full speed. Where the heck did his arms come from? She wondered briefly. The thug yelled and released her. Unfortunately for Tenten, the man who was spinning her this time happened to be standing much closer to the wall. Tenten slammed into the wall back first. She coughed up a minimum amount of blood before sliding down to the floor. She opened her eyes and got back up on her feet again. Shit. That hurt. Damn it. I will not tolerate this. Tenten cursed. The thug who stood before her grinned and then laughed at her. This fueled the brunette's anger. But before she charged him, she looked around quickly. The young brunette saw how 2 shadow replications held one of the thugs in place while 2 other clones gave him a royal thrashing. Tenten then turned slightly and saw how a lone Naruto was facing off against the third thug. She saw the blonde get in a punch on the thug at the same time as he did. The 2 backed away from each other and growled. Tenten grit her teeth. The thug he was fighting just happened to be the one who had slapped her before. She frowned slightly. That must be the real Naruto-kun since he didn't disappear after the hit. She quickly concluded. Tenten turned back to her own opponent. It was time. The skilled kunoichi reached into her item pouch and took out 2 nicely decorated scrolls. She placed them on the ground and kneeled. The thug made some rapid hand seals and a katana appeared in his right hand. I'm sorry that the demon spawn managed to drag such an attractive young girl like you into the dirt. But don't worry. I will make it painless for you. You won't feel a thing, the thug stated. Then he charged. Tenten concentrated and molded some chakra while making rapid hand seals. No way in hell am I going to let this guy off easily. Here goes. Tenten crossed her arms with her hands up at her shoulders. Rising twin dragons. Tenten exploded into a huge cloud of smoke, which halted the thug's advances. He stared dumbfounded into the smoke. He had seen nothing like that before. Then, 2 dragon heads made of smoke rose from the cloud with impressive speed. They spun around each other rapidly before turning into the same scrolls. From the beginning, the scrolls continued spinning around each other as high up in the air as the ceiling allowed. Tenten gathered chakra at her feet and leapt high up into the air. She reached the top and started putting her hands and feet on different places on the scrolls. Every time she touched a spot on the scrolls, a weapon emerged. Tenten focused her chakra so that the weapons she wasn't holding got stuck underneath her feet. She then started kicking and moving her arms, making the weapons fly. The thug's eyes widened as a whole barrage of kunai, different kinds of knives, shites, daggers, senbon needles, and shurikens came flying at him. A second and a scream later, the man looked very much like a hedgehog. He fell on his back with at least 7 weapons buried in each limb. Tenten landed on the ground and glared at him. You're lucky that I don't have the heart to kill you, you know. But I do have the heart to hurt you, very much. I believe I've shown you that. Tenten grumbled. The man wasn't dead, just wounded. The used scrolls fell down beside Tenten. It was now that she noticed that she was out of breath. Not only that, a large amount of her chakra had been sapped. Just like that, she started panting as she stood up. What the? Why am I so drained? Using that attack once doesn't take much chakra at all. What's going on here? Tenten wondered. The brunette took a step forward and immediately felt nauseous. Tenten felt the floor billow underneath her feet and she had to fight in order to keep her balance. What's going on with me? I feel sick. Did that guy use some kind of poison on me? No, he never touched me, so he couldn't have. Genjutsu. No, I don't think so. He never formed any hand seals besides for when he summoned that sword. Then what is it? Whoa, Tenten thought. The brunette swooned dangerously on her feet and she only just managed to stay standing. Tenten tried to call out to Naruto, but her mouth wouldn't cooperate with her. The brown-haired kunoichi grit her teeth and frowned as another wave of sickness washed over her. Naruto and the Chunin thug circled each other while eyeing the other warily. They were holding one kunai each. Naruto's left eye twitched, and the thug's eyes widened slightly. They jumped in at the same time and clashed a few times with their kunai. After dealing a few blows, the two ninjas jumped back. They started circling again. Without breaking eye contact at all. Naruto grit his teeth slightly. Damn it. He is good. He sliced up all of my clones in a matter of seconds. But something isn't right here. He wasn't this strong yesterday. Wasn't he serious yesterday? No, he must have been serious. I bet he was just too shocked to move when I showed him my Kyuubi chakra. Damn this, I need to end it now. Naruto thought. He jumped away from the Chunin thug and formed his favorite hand seal. Shadow replication technique. Naruto yelled. He erupted into 6 clones. The clones ran up beside the thug and formed a wide circle. The thug merely humped and started making hand seals. Ha! You won't get me this time. Here's a little something for you. Wind element. Sonic blades technique. The thug called out. The Chunin thug made all his fingers erect. He started slashing the air viciously. 3 of clones suddenly screamed as vicious winds slashed through them. They dissolved into smoke with individual puffs. Naruto quickly created 3 more clones and sent them to take the old one's places. The Chunin humped again and made the same hand seals. This time, however, Naruto was ready for him. He gathered chakra and mentally told his clones to do the same. When the Chunin thug let loose with his attack, Naruto and his clones stomped the ground and jumped up to the ceiling. The team of Narutos pushed away from the roof as soon as their feet touched it. They quickly put their hands together. Transform. The Naruto team yelled. A big smoke cloud erupted from them and the Chunin thug looked up. His eyes widened at what he saw. 6 big balls of steel rained out of the smoke cloud. The Chunin thug froze. Bam 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 bam. Needless to say, the Chunin thug wasn't that steady on his feet anymore. 6 puffs of smoke later, Naruto stood alone before the fallen thug. He was slightly out of breath, but that was soon cured. After confirming that the thug he had beaten wasn't going anywhere soon, Naruto turned to check on his girlfriend. Tenten, are you? Naruto's words froze in his throat. Tenten was lying on the floor unconscious. Naruto zipped over to her in less than a second. He kneeled down beside her and put his right hand behind her head. Naruto raised her up slightly and shook her. Tenten, hey, Tenten, wake up. Naruto beckoned. But Tenten remained motionless. Naruto was getting really worried by now. As he sat there without knowing what to do, a low rumbling in the back of his head was heard. Hey, kid, snap out of it, will you? The female's not dead. Naruto blinked. What now, Kyuubi? If this is one of your sick jokes, then no thank you. Naruto sent. Even though I do have a few of those in mind, I didn't contact you for that purpose. Listen, kid, it's about the female. Kyuubi said. Naruto picked Tenten up from the floor and walked towards the bedroom. Congratulations. Did you finally notice that there's something wrong with her? Naruto grumbled. He put Tenten down on her bed and made sure that she was breathing before listening to the fox demon again. There's nothing wrong with her. She's just tired out. And she's carrying a cub, Kyuubi said. Naruto blinked once, twice, then the hidden meaning behind the demon's words revealed itself in his mind. Whaat. Naruto shook his head. He couldn't believe what the demon fox was trying to tell him. What? That's absurd. Tenten isn't pregnant. She can't be. Naruto sent back in disbelief. Oh yeah? Then what did you two do last night if not mating? Correct me if I'm wrong, but a female usually becomes pregnant after a mating session, does she not? Face it, kid. The female is carrying a cub, whether you're happy with it or not. Kyuubi said. Naruto stared wide-eyed at Tenten's stomach. So what you're saying is that Tenten is pregnant with my child. Naruto stuttered in his head. Kyuubi mentally slapped himself with his clawed paw at the boy's stupidity. Yes. The female is pregnant. The only reason she fainted is that the cub is beginning to demand more and more chakra from her. Kyuubi exclaimed. But I have seen pregnant women before and they didn't look as drained as Tenten is now. Naruto sent. Kyuubi grumbled, but decided to answer. That's because they weren't carrying the cub of a stupid teenager with a big and powerful fox demon in his stomach. Now, listen, I am going to give you some valuable information. In a week from now, the cub will be firmly attached to her chakra pathways. This means that after 7 days from now, abortion, as you humans call it, will be impossible. Kyuubi said. Naruto slowly digested every word. His brow furrowed in confusion. What do you mean, Kyuubi? Naruto wondered. Since I am sealed in your body, the cub will have certain side effects. The cub will, regrettably, look completely like a normal human. But the chakra, now that's a completely different story. My chakra is flowing in your body, whether you like it or not. So naturally, a big part of it will be transferred to the cub. I'm not sure how much, or what color it is going to be. But I am sure that it won't grow any fangs, claws, or fur. Regrettably, Kyuubi explained. Naruto digested the information slowly. Then another thought struck him. But Kyuubi, if the child demands this much chakra from Tenten, then won't that make the pregnancy really dangerous? Naruto sent. Worry circling around his thoughts. The cub will drain a lot of her chakra, that's for sure. But it won't drain all of it. The female has too much chakra in her for that to happen. Look. The cub was conceived only a few short hours ago. It has now started to grow. The cub just needed a chunk of her chakra to get itself started. That's all. Kyuubi explained. Naruto took some time to digest this information as well. So the chakra drain will slow down on its own now, right? She won't get drained like this again, right? Right. Naruto sent worriedly. The Kyuubi scratched its chin with one of its claws for a minute, fueling the boy's growing agony and despair. The demon laughed. Oh, how he loved to torment the boy. Yes, the chakra drain will slow down now. The cub is growing fast. I can sense it. Its chakra, although no more than the smallest thinkable flicker, is growing more and more. Kyuubi explained. But how? Naruto was interrupted before he could finish. I don't know too much about these things, I am mostly guessing. If you want to be certain, then go see that stupid Hokage of yours. There's nothing wrong with the female or the cub. Now stop bothering Me boy, I'm tired. Kyuubi stated irritatedly. Naruto let out the breath he had been holding and relaxed slightly. He wasn't completely calm though. Naruto watched the gentle rise and fall of Tenten's chest. His eyes were drawn down to her stomach. The blonde ninja shakily put a hand on top of it. Tenten was pregnant with his child. He was the father. His next breath got stuck in his throat. He was going to be a father. Him. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto let out the breath he had been holding in his throat and swallowed heavily. His thoughts were going a mile a minute. I can't believe it. I'm going to be a father. I'm really going to be a father. And Tenten is going to be a mother. It's just. Wow. Naruto thought. He took in Tenten's face and frowned. Something was gnawing at his mind. A bad feeling of some sort. He rose to his feet and started to gather up Tenten into his arms. Come on, Tenten. I'm going to bring you to the hospital now. I know that. Kyuubi said that you were alright, but I don't really trust the bastard. But don't worry, Tenten. I will definitely protect you. Just like I promised. Naruto whispered. Naruto froze as he remembered something. He gently put Tenten down on the bed again and spun around with a curse. Damn it. The thugs. I totally forgot about them. Naruto exclaimed. Naruto quickly dashed out into the living room and ran up to the thug that Tenten had beaten. He roughly removed the weapons from his body. The thug groaned weakly when Naruto pulled the weapons out, proving that he was still very much alive. None of the weapons were buried even halfway through his limbs, but the combined pain from all of the projectiles digging into different parts of him at the same time had obviously been enough for him to faint. Wuss. Naruto thought with great dislike. Naruto stood and zipped into the kitchen. He returned a few seconds later with a first aid kit. He tied a few bandages onto the bigger wounds while ignoring the smaller ones. He doesn't deserve this, but if I don't take care of some of his wounds, then people will have all the more reason to believe that I am Kyuubi and not just his host. Naruto thought. He finished what he was doing and made one last check to see that he was breathing before going over to another thug. He was still unconscious. This wasn't that strange since it had only been about 5 to 10 minutes since his clones knocked him out. Naruto ran a quick check on his injuries and concluded that he needed no bandages. He noticed, with personal joy, that the thug had a lump on his head the size of Mount Everest. Score 1-4. The replications, he thought. Naruto checked on the last thug and came to the conclusion that he didn't need any direct medical aid from him. The blonde grinned and raised his foot for some additional revenge, but decided against it. He had hurt him enough. There were already too many impotent guys running around in Konoha. Naruto scratched the back of his head. How am I supposed to sort this out? I need to take these guys to the police. But I also need to hurry and take Tenten to the hospital. If I take the thugs to the police first, then Tenten's condition might get worse. And if I take Tenten to the hospital first, then the thugs might wake up and either start trashing the apartment or chase after us. What the hell should I do? Naruto pondered. His hand stopped scratching and a light bulb went off inside his head. Wait. I know. Naruto exclaimed and beat his fist into his hand. Naruto bit his right thumb and made some quick hand seals. I can't believe I didn't think of this sooner, he thought. He slammed his right hand down on the floor and yelled. Summoning technique. Black markings spread out from his palm across a small part of the floor. And a plume of ninja smoke erupted from it. A pink frog the size of a motorcycle appeared. It croaked a greeting and sat back while awaiting orders. It was wearing a blue vest with the mark of Konoha on the back. Naruto pulled out a scroll from his item pouch and conjured up a rope. He used it to tie the 3 thugs onto the back of the frog. He made sure that the rope was tight enough to prevent the thugs from falling off, and light enough to make sure that the pink frog didn't suffocate. Naruto then whipped up an empty scroll and hastily scribbled down a short message on it. He put the scroll into the breast pocket in the frog's vest. Naruto walked in front of the frog and pointed to the window. Alright, listen up. I want you to bring these low lives to the police, got it? Alright, go. Naruto declared and made a sweeping motion with his hand. The pink frog croaked and practically flew out the window as it made use of its powerful legs. Naruto hurried back to Tenten and made sure that she was breathing okay before pulling her up into his arms. He secured his grip on her and looked down at her worriedly. Don't worry, Tenten. Whatever happens, I'll be there to protect you, Naruto declared. Naruto opened the bedroom window and disappeared outside. He flew across the rooftops as he hurried towards the Hokage Tower. Tsunade was just putting away another pile of paperwork when the door burst open. The fifth Hokage looked up, slightly startled. Naruto, what's wrong? Tsunade asked when she saw Tenten in the blonde ninja's arms. Naruto walked up to her desk and with a deep breath said, a lot. As Naruto launched into a high-speed explanation of what had happened, Tsunade checked on Tenten. She executed a diagnostic jutsu while listening very carefully to Naruto's every word. And as the two of them began their discussion, something happened. Deep within Tenten's foggy mind. Warm. That was the first feeling she got. She was somewhere warm. Light. That was the second feeling she got. She was somewhere where she was floating. Slowly, Tenten opened her eyes. And suddenly, she wasn't floating anymore. Huh, where am I? She blinked as if she had been drowsy. She shook her head to clear it. And looked around. She was standing in a glade with green lush trees everywhere. I'm in a forest. What am I doing here? Tenten turned a full 360 degrees while looking out across the forest. Strange. For some reason I feel like I know this place. Rising twin dragons. Tenten spun around on her heel and whipped her head to the left, just as the sound of several sharp objects digging into wood was heard. She gaped openly at the currently airborne person above her. It was a young girl, maybe 12 or 13 years of age. She was wearing a pink top in Chinese style, black slightly baggy pants, blue sandals, a forehead protector, and she had her hair up in two buns. What the hell? The girl was her. Tenten stared at her younger self as she landed on the ground. Two unrolled scrolls landed on the ground around her. The younger. Tenten took a few seconds to regain her breath before looking around. Her eyes went right past the present Tenten. I mean, gah. She can't see me. Of course she can't. This is a dream after all. But even though she knew that, she felt oddly awake for being in a dream. Tenten followed her younger self's example and looked around. She saw numerous kunai, senbon needles, scythes, knives, daggers, and shuriken buried in various trees and every single one of the practice dolls. She smiled, feeling some pride in being nearly flawless in her throwing skills already. At that age, the sound of running footsteps caught Tenten's attention and pulled her from her musings. Huh. Tenten whipped her head to her younger self. The younger woman was looking in the direction of where the footsteps were coming from. The present Tenten followed the younger one's example. Out from the trees came a boy. He was running on a small path that led its way through the forest. Tenten smiled fondly. I'd recognize that untamed hairstyle anywhere. Naruto. It seemed that her past self recognized him too. Said boy halted in mid-step and turned to her. The blonde bent his head to the side with a clueless look on his face. Tenten smiled. She knew that look. He didn't recognize her. Yet. A small frown made way across the younger Naruto's face. Tenten nodded. She knew that that was coming. He faintly remembered seeing her before and was trying to place her face with a name. He always did this whenever he was trying to remember a person he had met before. Then it hit her. This is my and Naruto-kun's first meeting. Well, our first time talking. To each other, anyway. She looked back and forth between her younger self and her boyfriend to be. Yeah, I remember now. 10. The past, Naruto said hesitantly. Now this is a surprise. You remember my name, even though we've never really met before. The past, Tenten stated. Naruto agreed that it was strange. He looked her over once and then asked. What happened to you? Tenten just had to laugh at that comment. That was Naruto for you. Clueless at just about everything that didn't have to do with fighting. Her past self gestured behind her and Naruto noticed the numerous throwing weapons scattered across the glade. Wow, you did all this. Amazing. You must have been training here since God knows when in the morning. And damn, you've sure got a lot of weapons. Where do you keep all of those? Naruto exclaimed. Cheerily, loudly, and with the energy of a child on sugar. Yes. This was the place we really officially met. Back then, I had absolutely no idea that he was the one that I would come to cherish the most. Tenten looked on as the past Naruto waved his arms around with a bright smile. Wow. Hey, what kinda amazing ninjutsu is that? How does it work? Naruto said excitedly. Why don't I show it to you? Back then, I was surprised when he asked me about my technique. It was the first time anyone had shown any interest in it. Well, besides Neji, of course. The past, Tenten dropped down to the ground, the used scrolls landing in two piles beside her. She panted hard and wiped the sweat off her forehead. That was so cool, Naruto exclaimed as he ran up to her. Glad you liked it. The brunette breathed before collapsing to the ground, now thoroughly spent. When he saw how I collapsed, he instantly asked me what was wrong. He looked so worried. Naruto quickly kneeled down beside her. Hey, are you alright? Naruto asked, blue eyes filled with worry. Tenten chuckled and rolled over onto her back. I'm alright. Just tired, she stated. And when I lay there to catch my breath, he stayed with me. I remember wondering why he did that so intensively. I just had to ask. Hey, getting the boy's attention, she continued, why are you sitting here like this with me? I mean, not that I dislike you being here or anything, but I mean, you don't even know me. Naruto seemed to contemplate this for a moment or two. Then he looked away from her and towards the sky. I don't really know. I just, didn't feel like leaving. When Tenten raised a quizzical eyebrow, he continued. Besides, do I really need a reason? Can't I hang out with people simply because I want to? He said with a goofy laugh. The brunette looked at the boy before her, her face displaying nothing but surprise. His answer left me so stumped I couldn't think of a single thing to say. Well, I really didn't need to, since. Hey, I'm going to Ichiraku to eat breakfast. Do you wanna come? Naruto asked. Naruto grabbed her wrist and smiled, if possible, even brighter than before. Ah, come on, it'll be fun, he exclaimed cheerily. And before she could say a single word, Tenten was yanked onto her feet and had to run to keep up with the blonde. Hey, don't just pull on my wrist like that. You could have sprained it or something, Tenten shouted as she struggled to keep up. Naruto turned to her with his everlasting smile. Ah, come on, don't be such a worrywart, he said before turning his head and shouting, now let's go. Ichiraku ramen, here we come. Tenten stared at him in a mix of surprise and shock for a moment before sighing. And here I thought I could finally get away from crazy people. I escape from Lee and Guy Sensei for one day and I run straight into their pseudo long lost brother, she muttered. Did you say something, Tenten? Sigh. Nothing, Naruto. Nothing at all. She looked up at the sky. She knew by her experiences with Lee that trying to refuse offers from people like him was next to impossible. Why me? God, she muttered in expiration. The present Tenten watched them run down the path. She was smiling softly at them. Well, I certainly got that question answered for me. Not that I really believe in God or anything, but still. Just as she thought that, the surroundings changed again. Tenten looked around and saw that she was back where she started. The glade in the forest. However, this time the scene playing out before her was different. The past Tenten was standing before the grinning blonde. You what? She asked, her surprise obvious. Naruto put his hands behind his head and grinned. I said, do you wanna train with me? He repeated. Tenten arched an eyebrow. Why would you ask that? She asked. Well, although I don't really mind training by myself, spending the whole day by beating the crap out of shadow replications does get really boring after a while. Plus, I'm not really sure if it's such a great training method. Tenten's face was the picture of sarcasm as she replied. Really? Naruto nodded, completely oblivious. Besides, you're in the same situation, right? You're training alone. Day out and day in too, right? He reasoned. Even though beating the crap out of clones and practicing your throwing weapon skills are two very different things, he did have a point there. The brunette seemed to think it over for a minute. Sure, why not? But I really don't see how we can train together. Seeing as we use completely different training methods. Tenten said. Isn't that obvious? You're riding twin dragons, whatever is really fast and hard to dodge, right? Naruto started. Rising twin dragons. Tenten corrected him. Right. Anyway, as I was saying, your technique is really fast, and my shadow replication technique makes me hard to hit. So, what do you think? Isn't it the greatest training method ever? Naruto exclaimed. Tenten opened her mouth to retort but stopped herself. Once again, he had a point. You know, you may just be right there. My rising twin dragons is fast, but it isn't as good as I would like it to be when facing off against moving targets. Alright then, Naruto, you've got yourself a deal, Tenten said. Naruto pumped his fist into the air. Alright, I'm the greatest, he exclaimed. Tenten brought out her two favorite scrolls. I'm interested in this training method, Naruto. You mind if I try it out right now? She asked. Naruto beat a fist into his palm. Oh yeah, bring it on. I was just going to ask the same thing. Anyway, he said confidently. Tenten hesitated. She was confident in her ability to control the technique, but it could still be really dangerous. You sure you're ready, Naruto? I'm going to come at you with everything I've got, she stated. Hey, I was born ready. Gimme your best shot, Naruto challenged. Tenten hesitated again. I won't pull any kunai on you, she warned. Didn't you hear me? Naruto said, his well-known self-confidence making its grand appearance. I said, gimme your best shot. If you say so, Tenten said, still unsure. Naruto, on the other hand, was not shadow replication technique. He shouted and 15 copies of himself appeared. Tenten frowned and set the scrolls on the ground. She did warn him. Rising twin dragons. Always so confident. No matter what the situation. Naruto-kun never loses his confidence or his belief in himself. And that fact didn't change as the rain of sharp projectiles showered down towards him. Naruto grinned confidently and reached into his item pouch. His clones did the same. Even when beaten, Tenten landed and wiped the sweat off her forehead. She slowly walked towards the kneeling boy. Hey, you okay? I didn't hit anything vital, did I? She asked, in concern. When she didn't get an answer from him, she said, you did really great with deflecting my weapons, Naruto. Although, a ninja should really be able to read underneath the underneath. Even though I admit, the strings attached to my weapons were a bit hard to see. Naruto put a hand on top of his knee, his body shaking. Tenten frowned in concern. She reached out to put a hand on his shoulder, but, again. Huh? Tenten said with a raised eyebrow. Do it again. That riding twin dragons thing of yours Do it again, Naruto said and slowly stood up. Tenten nearly face faulted. Ha. Do that trick of your again, Tenten. I'll beat it this time. Naruto panted, head bowed. Before she could say a word, he raised his head. Don't act so worried about me, Tenten. I'm not a baby, you know. I'm alright. So go right ahead and do your riding twin dragons. I'll definitely beat it this time, Naruto said and beat his fist into his palm. Tenten stared at him in disbelief. Naruto, I don't go back on my word, 'cause that's my way of the ninja. Tenten looked at Naruto in wonder. That was the first time I came face to face with Naruto's extreme bullheadedness and his way of the ninja. The surroundings changed once again. Tenten watched as her younger self and Naruto met and talked. Then the surroundings changed again and the two of them were training. As time passed by, we saw each other more and more. It came to the point where we talked to each other at least once a day. We started to get to know each other better and better for each passing day. Tenten. Hey Naruto. Wow. Slow down. Where's the fire? You'll never be able to guess what I just found out this morning at breakfast. Ichiraku has a 10% discount on everything. Ichiraku has got a 10% discount. Hey. How the hell did you know that? I'm psychic. Yeah, and I'm a cup ramen in disguise. Seriously, how did you know that? Women's intuition. Tenten. Alright, it's nothing, really. I just put two and two together. That's all. You eat breakfast at Ichiraku's every day, and you're obsessed with ramen. If you think that way, 2 plus 2 definitely equals 4. Really? Well, if you know about it, then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Hey, how many times do I have to tell you to stop pulling on my wrist? Quit whining and step on it. As long as it gets my wrist out of your grasp. It was strange, having just started to get to know him a few weeks ago, I was already growing fond of him. At times, he was just like the annoying little brother I never had. Rising twin. Hey. Tenten. Ga. Thump. Hey. Tenten. Guess why? Hey, why are you on the ground? And how come you've got that big lump on your head? Come a little closer and ask again. Huh, like this. Perfect. Bam. And sometimes, he was the best friend I could ask for. Quote. You okay? Nod. Quote. You sure? Nod. Quote. Okay. Quote. 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 You're not gonna tell me what happened, are you? Shake. Quote. Okay. Quote. 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 Here. Blink. Go ahead, take it. I've got one more. Quote. Question mark. Quote. Yeah, I know, you don't like ramen much. But it usually cheers me up when I'm down. Quote. 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 Thanks. Quote. Don't mention it. The more time we spent together, the more I started to enjoy his company. Man. Tenten banged her head down on the wood before her. What's the matter, Tenten? The pink-haired Kunoichi, sitting next to her, asked. Tenten put her chin in her hand and sighed. You saw Naruto take off a few minutes ago, right, Sakura? He had just had his lunch, she said without looking at her friend. Sakura nodded and blew a little on her noodles before eating them. Yeah, so, she asked after swallowing. Tenten's brown eyes drifted to the pile of empty bowls. I don't know what he did, but somehow, I ended up paying for him, she said and sighed, thinking about her now near empty wallet. What? Naruto does that to you too? Tenten turned her head with a raised eyebrow. Sakura had gone for another pack of noodles, but her hand had stopped before picking it up out of the bowl. She looked really surprised. What's with the look, Sakura? Tenten asked. Sakura shook her head and went back to her bowl. Nothing. I was just surprised, she said quietly and blew on her noodles. Tenten frowned in question, her curiosity rising. Why? Naruto does the same thing with you too, right? She pointed out. Sakura nodded, stirring the contents of her bowl. Yeah, but that's because he likes me. She said, a frown crossing her face. So, what's that got to do with this? Tenten demanded, her curiosity growing towards its peak. Sakura blew on another pack of noodles. Well, I've spent a whole lot of time with Naruto because of him being in my team and everything, and there is one thing I can say for certain about him. She said and stirred her bowl again. Which is? Tenten asked, her curiosity now having reached its peak. Sakura put down her chopsticks and turned to Tenten. She looked as if she was unsure about something, and at the same time surprised. The fact that Naruto only does this with people he really likes. Tenten's eyes widened. Whatever answer she had been expecting, that had not been one of them. See. Sakura blinked. She tried to get eye contact with her friend, but no matter what she did, she would not look up from the empty bowl before her, nor would she remove her hand from her right cheek, which felt hot for some reason. And after that particular event at the ramen stand, I somehow found it hard to stay mad at Naruto for extended periods of time. Or complain too much when he dragged me to Ichiraku. Hey, what's wrong, Tenten? What do you mean? Why aren't you saying anything? I mean, usually, you'd be screaming at me at the top of your lungs to let go of your wrist. Oh, well, I just figured that it was useless to argue, that's all. You would never let go no matter how much I complained, would you? Nope. Thought so. It was strange at the time, but I really started to enjoy it whenever he grabbed my hand. And, for some reason, whenever he came by to see me, I always felt so happy. I came to really like that goofy smile of his, especially when he directed it at me. It made me feel kinda warm inside. It actually came to the point when I asked myself one morning if I was falling for him. But I just laughed the thought off and went off to train with Neji. It had been a while, after all. And that was the fateful day when Neji misread my movements and attacked. Neji came within 5 meters from her with no sign of stopping. Tenten closed her eyes and raised her arms to take the hit. This is going to hurt, Tenten thought. Her heart beat loudly in her ears and shut out all the other sounds around her. She shut her eyes tight and expected to feel pain. But there wasn't any. Tenten waited 1 second, 2, 3. Then she opened her eyes slowly. They widened at the sight before her. Neji was standing about 2 meters from her. His palm was pressing against orange fabric. He had a look of surprise on his face. And for a good reason. Standing 1 meter from Tenten was a blond boy. He was pressing his arm against Neji's palm. Tenten just stared. Her mouth fell open in surprise and shock. Naruto-kun. Where did he come from? Why is he here? Tenten wondered. Then her brain finally registered the position of the boy's arm. Naruto-kun. He blocked Neji's attack. Tenten thought. Naruto growled at Neji. Don't you dare hurt her. Do you hear me? Don't you dare hurt her. Naruto growled. Tenten's eyes widened. Did Naruto just defend her? I was shell-shocked. No one had ever even attempted to block one of Neji's strikes with their bare arms before. But that was Naruto. For you, Konoha's #1 most surprising ninja. It was also the day when I realized that the answer to the question I asked myself the very same morning was yes. It's strange how one's opinion of someone can change in the blink of an eye, or in a gesture. Tenten looked Naruto up and down. Her cheeks heated up and her heartbeat quickened. Then, their eyes locked. They lost all sense of time and place as they gazed into each other's eyes. Tenten drowned in Naruto's blue orbs. She couldn't tear her eyes from his. Then before she knew it, he had crossed the distance between them and had her in his arms. He lowered his face and pressed his lips against Tenten's. Her cheeks flushed crimson and her breathing sped up. Never before in her life had Tenten felt so alive than when Naruto kissed her. It was like she had been dreaming up until now. Tenten lost her self-control and a burning passion took over. She placed her hands on the back of Naruto's head and kissed him back. With passion, she ran her hands through his wild spiky hair. Naruto soon responded and their light kissing turned more passionate. The present Tenten watched smilingly how her younger self bonded with the one who was to become her most loved one. Tenten brought a hand up to her heart. Yes, this is how I came to love Naruto-kun. Through all the confusion and irritation, I learned one thing. You can't choose who you are going to fall in love with. Ever. It just happens. Tenten turned around and looked up at the sky just as the surroundings changed and became whiter. That's right. I love Naruto-kun. With all my heart. No matter what happens, I will always love him. And nothing will ever change that. Nothing. A sudden thought then struck her. Why am I seeing all of this? I mean, I know it's a dream and all. But I've never felt so awake when dreaming before. And I've never been able to blink in a dream, or laugh and actually feel it in my stomach. As she pondered this, the surroundings changed. Before she realized it, she was back in the white area where she started. She started floating higher and higher up towards a ceiling she couldn't see. Her eyes widened as the light above her became brighter and blinded her. But for some reason, she could not look away. And that's what happened. Tsunade Obachan. Tsunade slowly nodded as she contemplated the blushing boy's story. Naruto had just finished telling her in detail about what had happened last night. Well, maybe not every detail. Naruto had started to blush and stutter when he came to the part where him and Tenten went into her apartment and Tsunade had said to him, with a completely straight face. Ah, you two had sex. I see now. No wonder your hair looked more ruffled than usual. This had caused such blushing and stuttering from him that would have put Hinata to shame a few years ago. Tsunade had finished up her diagnostic technique a little while ago. And she had put Tenten on a couch a meter away from her desk. She was lying with her back to them. None of them noticed her arm twitch. I can't believe it. I'm really going to be a father. I found out about it over an hour ago and it still hasn't sunk in yet. Naruto whispered. And looked down at his slightly shaking hand. Tsunade chuckled. Most men doesn't really realize that their wives are pregnant before they start showing it, she said. Naruto perked up. Hey, Tsunade Obachan, you finished the diagnosis, didn't you? So, how was it? Is Tenten going to be alright? Come on. Tell me, he said, growing more and more nervous. Maybe if you shut up, I will. It was funny how fast Naruto could shut his mouth when he really wanted to. Alright, Naruto, listen. I've run every diagnostic technique I know on Tenten and can safely say that you are right. She is pregnant. Naruto swallowed. Even though Kyuubi had told him, he hadn't really believed it. Now, however, with Tsunade herself sitting before him, telling him the same thing, he believed it. However, Tsunade barked, making Naruto almost jump out of his skin. There were also some abnormalities. Naruto clenched the fabric of his pants. He swallowed hard. This could not be good. Flat abnormalities. He stuttered, eyes wide with fear. Tsunade put her hands under her chin and narrowed her eyes. The speed at which the embryo is attaching itself to Tenten's chakra pathways is much higher than what is normal. I have seen many pregnancies, and I've never seen one like this. Aside from this, it is completely normal. Tsunade stated. Naruto turned to glance at Tenten briefly before returning to Tsunade. He was very tense. But it's gonna be alright, right? Tenten and the child are going to be alright, right? They're not going to get hurt or anything. Right. Naruto nearly shouted. He was standing up now, staring at Tsunade with a nearly frantic look on his face. Tsunade sighed and closed her eyes. I don't know. It looks pretty much alright, but I need to take a look at your seal in order to make sure that your tenant doesn't have anything to do with this. We cannot take any chances, Naruto. She stated. Naruto had his jacket off and his shirt pulled up before Tsunade could blink. Then go ahead and check it already. Don't just sit there and sigh. We don't have all day, you know. What if this is something serious? Naruto shouted. Tsunade frowned and shook her head. I'm afraid I can't do that, Naruto. She said. Naruto slammed his foot down on her desk and a strong crack was heard. And why the hell not? Naruto screamed furiously. Why the hell can't she just check the seal already? Why is she just sitting there stalling for? If Tenten ends up getting hurt because of her stalling, I swear, Naruto thought. He was getting more and more furious. With each passing second, he was so worried about Tenten he couldn't take it. I've been around on the battlefield and in the hospital before you were even born, so I know my share of seals. But I'm no expert. And an expert is precisely what is needed here. Tsunade stated seriously. Then go ahead and shut up. Naruto backed a step in sheer surprise. Tsunade slammed her hands down on her desk and nailed him down with a glare. I was just going to call him here. If you hadn't been so hot-headed, he would have already been here. So if it isn't too much to ask, be quiet and stay still for a minute while I go and call him. Tsunade roared. Naruto was down in the chair before he knew it himself. Tsunade sighed and walked around the desk. Don't worry, Naruto. Whatever he says when he gets here, I will stand behind you and Tenten all the way. So cool your head a bit and stay put. She said softly and put her hand on his shoulder. Naruto saw the sincerity in her eyes and relaxed a bit. Tsunade nodded and walked up to the door. I have a first-class urgent message to deliver. She called. The second she stopped talking, a masked man was kneeling before her. Yes, Hokage-sama, the Anbu said. Tsunade bent down and whispered something in his ear. The Anbu visibly flinched as she finished. You got all that? Good. Then go. Tsunade said and waved her arm. Oh. The Anbu nodded and disappeared in a plume of smoke. Tsunade returned to her desk and sat down. Naruto followed her with his eyes all the way. The seal expert will be here soon. Tsunade said. Naruto nodded and looked down. Tsunade blinked. She had never seen him like this before. His eyes were darting from left to right, his fingers were moving around. As if he didn't know what to do with them, his knee was moving up and down. His toes were moving around even worse than his fingers, and he was starting to shake ever so slightly. My god. He looks as though he's about to either have a nervous breakdown or go stark raving mad. Tsunade thought. Naruto. She flinched before she had even finished calling his name. He was already looking at her. Tsunade looked him over and her expression hardened. What if his tenant has something to do with his fidgety state? She wondered, her mind running over what that could mean. She did not like it. Have you been feeling okay recently? I mean, you haven't been dizzy, or had sudden mood swings, or something like that? Tsunade asked, her gaze hard. Naruto was visibly confused by her question, but he answered nonetheless. No, I've been fine. Why? Naruto wondered. It was your tenant that first told you that Tenten was pregnant. Was it not? Tsunade asked, her voice carrying a hard edge. Naruto nodded and glanced back at Tenten. She was still unconscious. But as he turned away from her, he failed to see the slight movement of her mouth. Tsunade lowered her head so that her hands covered her mouth. It might just be a bit of paranoia from my side, but what if it was your tenant that made Tenten pregnant? After all, he knew she was before you did, right? Tsunade said. Naruto flinched and put a hand on his stomach. What? That's impossible. How can he have made Tenten pregnant? I mean, he's. Naruto said and stared down at his stomach. He is sealed inside of you. Naruto flinched again. While I want to agree with you in that it is impossible for him to do anything to your child, I am afraid I can't. There are too many uncertain factors. After all, no one knows exactly how your seal works anymore, Naruto. The last two who knew are dead. That is why it is so crucial to let this seal specialist take a look at your seal in order to confirm that it isn't weakening or something like that. Tsunade stated gravely. Naruto stared wide-eyed at his stomach. His mouth was slightly open and he was covered in a thin layer of cold sweat. Kyuubi, if you have anything to do with this, I swear I will tear you out of my stomach and then rip you to tiny little pieces that even you won't be able to regenerate from. Naruto swore. He looked up. If worse comes to worse, and it turns out that he did have something to do with this, then I don't give a shit if he's Kyuubi, the strongest of the tailed demons. I'll. Naruto raised his voice and Kyuubi. Naruto froze. He became still as a statue. No. No, not now. Please don't wake up now. He thought. Naruto slowly turned, and his worst fears were confirmed. Sitting up on the couch was a very awake Tenten. The young Kunoichi looked like she had just received the shock of her life. Which she had. Naruto-kun, you've got the Kyuubi sealed in inside of you. Is that really true? Tenten asked, her face a mix of emotions. Tenten, Naruto tried, but he was interrupted. It's true. The teenagers both turned to the fifth Hokage of Konoha. Tsunade was looking even more serious now than before. It is unfortunate that you heard that part. I was hoping to spare you from the grief of knowing. Tsunade stated. Tenten fell back against the couch. Wait a second. So it's true then. The Kyuubi didn't die then. Naruto-kun has got the Kyuubi sealed in him. Is this really true? Tenten asked slowly, her voice containing no emotions. Tsunade kept looking at her, but otherwise did not move. Naruto looked to Anne from the two of them, his lips moving but no sound coming over them. He looked like a lost little child. Tenten's eyes widened. This has got to be some kind of a joke. Naruto-kun can't have. He can't be, she said, her voice falling into whispering. Naruto stood up and took a step towards her and reached out his hand. Tenten, Tenten put her hand on her stomach. And I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. And you are. No. This just can't. She whispered, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. She started to shake, her eyes filled with moisture. Naruto took another hesitant step towards her. Tenten, it's not what you think. It's not what. It's not true that I'm pregnant. It's not true that you've got the Kyuubi sealed inside of you. It's not true that you're. Tenten stuttered, her eyes filled with a sudden fear. Naruto flinched and took a step back, his hand and lower lip quivered. A strong wave of fear washed over him. Tenten, please, it's not. Don't look at me like that. Naruto yelled and shut his eyes tight and looked away. Don't look at me like I'm some kind of monster. His whole body was shaking now, tears spilled down his cheeks. Please don't look at me like that. Please, don't look at me with those cold eyes. Don't look at me with such hate. I can't handle that. Not you too. I can't stand it. Not if you start hating me too. Naruto said, more and more tears escaping down his cheeks as he backed another step. He clenched his fists and grit his teeth. Ragged breaths betrayed sobs that held pain within them that ran deeper than the sea. The pure pain in his voice was enough to bring Tenten slightly to her senses. She stared at him open-mouthed, unsure of what to say. Tenten felt completely lost. She felt like she didn't know a thing. She felt tricked somehow, brought behind the light. She felt as if everything she had been told Everything she had believed during the last few years was all. Was all just a. Naruto. Did you lie to me? All these years? Did you? But Tenten didn't get further than that. A sudden ear-splitting crash shocked them both half to death. In the middle of the pieces that used to be a desk, stood the fifth Hokage. Tsunade's brown eyes were colder than the coldest glacier. Her face was a mask of stone, and in it was an expression engraved, the kind that could make your enemies shit themselves. And while it didn't have that particular effect on Naruto and Tenten, it did serve its purpose by shocking the shit out of them. In other words, giving their undivided attention to her. Naruto did not lie to you, Tenten. Everything he has told you has been nothing but the truth. I can say this because I trust Naruto completely with my life. And if you think, even for one single second, that Naruto is the Kyuubi, then you're as far off from the truth as I would be if I told you I had invited Orochimaru over for a cup of tea. Tsunade slowly, and not completely unintimidatingly, made her way over to them. Her green gamble jacket fluttered around her and her ponytails seemed to slightly float. Naruto and Tenten swallowed. The chakra that was coming from her was everything but small. Listen good and listen well, Tenten. 'Cause I am going to tell you everything. From the day the Kyuubi attacked Konoha, up to this very day. Tsunade stated, there being nothing but seriousness in her voice. When the Kyuubi attacked on that fateful day, we were literally powerless to stop it. The beast shook off our attacks like they were nothing. Which I suspect they were to the beast. The Kyuubi would have completely obliterated Konoha, had it not been for that one man. Tsunade said and glanced up at one of the photos hanging on the wall. The Yondaime came and killed the Kyuubi. Well, that's what you've been told. Isn't that right, Tenten? Tenten could only nod. Tsunade nodded too. Well, you can forget about that. That's nothing more but a big fat lie. What really happened is this. The Yondaime fought the Kyuubi with all his power, but even he was unable to stop the beast. And that's saying something, seeing as the Yondaime was probably the strongest ninja in the world at the time. In the end, he had no choice. Yondaime sacrificed himself in order to use an extremely powerful forbidden technique, in order to seal the Kyuubi away. And where do you think he chose to seal the beast? Tsunade said, looking at the young ninjas before her, one at a time. He sealed him in a child that had just had its umbilical cord cut and was still bleeding from it. Now, we arrive at an extremely interesting question. Who, do you think, was that child? Yes, it was none other than Uzumaki Naruto. Tenten gasped and her eyes widened even more than before. Naruto opened and closed his mouth a few times before looking down at the floor. There. It was out in the open. His biggest secret was revealed. Tsunade fixed her gaze on Tenten, who had fallen back into the couch. The brunette opened and closed her mouth like a fish and made a few stuttering noises, but no real words. Tsunade sighed and put a hand on her hip. Tenten, I know it is a lot to take in at once. But, before you start doing that, let me ask you one thing. Has Naruto ever, and I really do mean, ever, hurt you before? Has he ever been anything but caring towards you? Tsunade asked. Tenten looked up at her for a few seconds before looking down at her hands. She bit her lip as she contemplated her question. Memories of her and Naruto's time together, both before and after they got together, flashed by before her eyes. With each passing memory, Tenten grew more and more sure. Besides her growing certainty, there was another thought gnawing at her in the back of her head. A vague memory of something, a dream. Even though she could not recall what the dream had been about, she was sure that it had been something really important. After a few agonizing minutes, Tenten raised her head. Naruto stood in the same position, hands hanging by his sides and head hung low. Well, have you made up your mind? Tsunade asked, her firm gaze back on Tenten. The brown-haired Kunoichi nodded. She stood up and made her way, step by step, over to Naruto. The blonde heard her and tensed up in preparation for the screaming he knew was coming. His eyes snapped wide open as he felt arms snake themselves around his waist. Look at you, you poor idiot. You're shaking worse than a leaf on a tree that has been caught in a storm. Came a soft voice by his ear. Naruto shivered. What was she? 10. What are you doing? Aren't you mad at me? The arms tightened their grip. Quote. Don't be stupid. Of course I'm mad at you. Naruto tensed up. I knew it, he thought in agony. Wind blew across his ear as a chuckle was heard. I'm mad at you, alright. I'm mad at you for not telling me the truth. Naruto turned around and raised his hands, which were shaking. Tenten was smiling. She was actually smiling. Her brown eyes filled with tears as she softly punched him in the chest. Tenten, why are you? Don't you hate me? Naruto asked, his voice cracking. Dared he hope? Dared he believe? Tenten started to silently hiccup. Then she threw herself into his arms. How the hell can I hate you, Naruto-kun? Especially when you've got that stupid look on your face. After all the time we've spent together, how the hell do you expect me to hate you? Tenten said, tears spilling down her cheeks. Naruto's eyes widened, then they filled up with moisture, which promptly escaped. He hiccuped once, then he slung his arms around Tenten and hugged her to him with all the strength he had in him. Tsunade watched with a content smile as the young couple broke down and started crying. Tenten grabbed fistfuls of Naruto's black shirt while he did the same with her pink top. Tenten cried into Naruto's shoulder as he let his tears spill on the top of her head. So you don't think that I'm just the Kyuubi reborn? You're not going to leave me because of the Kyuubi? Naruto sobbed. Tenten chuckled through her tears. Of course I don't think that. And of course I won't leave you. You're still my beloved Naruto-kun. I love you, you big oaf. And nothing can ever change that. Do you hear me? Uzumaki Naruto, she shouted through her crying. Naruto laughed as the tears ran down his cheeks. He hugged her to him and just laughed. Tenten started laughing too. The tension is breaking. It must have been so hard for him when Tenten almost called him Kyuubi. But luckily, the idiot has managed to find someone who loves him unconditionally. Tsunade thought as she watched the pair. She smiled. I'm so happy for you, Naruto. Well, aren't you the lovely couple? Hugging all closely and such. I must say I'm proud of you, brat. Naruto turned and looked over his shoulder, as did Tenten. There, standing in the doorway, with a wide grin on his face, was none other than Ero Sennin. Yes, there it was. My blood, sweat, and tears. Well, from a time, anyway. I understand if you're mad at me, believe me, I am too. It wasn't until I received the last few reviews that I finally got off my lazy ass and did something. I will now sincerely try to not leave you hanging too long this time. And with that cleared up, please tell me what you thought of the chapter. And no flames, thank you. If it isn't constructive criticism,